Guilt is used as, kanang defense mechanism. Magunaw na din, di ba? Kada mo kanang guilty gid kayo, magunaw na yung kagsuko-suko. Lagi, oy! Rama! Suko-suko, di ka guna. Ikaw ba ka, ikaw may sayop. So, we blame ourselves and somehow even to the point that we hurt ourselves. Diba? A lot of people when they're guilty, so they blame themselves, they hurt. They call it the Dobby effect. Nga bitong sige imong i-hurt imong kuan kay para murag mawala ang feeling of guilt. Even a lot of people take, maybe drugs or alcohol and pills just to wear off the feeling of guilt, trying to hurt themselves. Ako na lang, di ba? So, the two results of guilt and shame. What are the two results of guilt and shame? Now, guilt and shame is quite a powerful emotion as well. So, if handled right, it can actually bring transformation. Di ba? Guilt can make you lead you to do what is right and take responsibility of your mistake. Right? So in other words, pag, ang guilty nga feeling, so it can also teach you nga, dapat sakto na gidea akong buhaton. You can also learn something from that. But the second effect is that, result of it is that it can also lead to suffering and pain. Diba? So ako pag yung ganina, we blame ourselves, we hurt ourselves, we punish ourselves, and normally repeat the same mistake again and again. Nga na naging siguro ko, di naging siguro maubsab, I'll just have to, deal with it. And even though you're dealing with it in that way, you're actually in pain and in suffering inside. So that's the result of guilt and shame. Guilt is one of the most crippling diseases among the people today. Psychiatrists and doctors say that the unresolved guilt is the number one cause of mental illness and suicide. Because there's guilt in our hearts. That's why there was a study, na-study sa isa ka university, i-studyhan nila for the past 10 years, mga causes sa accident sa road, mga bangga ba? And somehow they found out that it was really because of guilt. Anong kaning mga driver, magkabangga. There's actually something guilt. Maybe suko na sila or they're guilty of what they've done and all those things. So it can lead you to transformation. It can change your lives to understand, what you should do, what is right. But it can also lead you to pain and suffering. Now, there are three things that we normally do to avoid guilt and shame. Naaday tulo ka butang igsoon, nga atong gabuhaton usually sa mga tao, unsaon nato pag-avoid ang guilt and shame. That's why when we, feel guilt and shame, di ba, we have somehow did not adhere to the standards. Right? And by following the standards, we'll be able to be free of guilt. Pero ang atong gabuhaton igsoon, instead of following the standards, we do our own standard. And what people normally do is to excuse themselves, to either avoid guilt or somehow, destroy guilt or erase guilt pertaining to that standard. Now, what do we do, Igson? Usually, when we feel guilty, instead of following the standard, number one is that we lower the standard, right? The most easiest way to excuse ourselves from feeling guilty by not adhering to the standard is that we lower the standard. Di man ako ni kaya, Lord, di ba? We will just create our own God that is not perfect and holy. Right? So, in other words, excuse atong sa mga, ubuso na nato, ingani bitang Ginoo. Ug himo tagatong Ginoo igsoon, nga ingani ang iyahang panglantaw. And through this, we'll be able to view ourselves as a good person. Right? So, murag maghimo tag atong Ginoo nga somehow ingani ang iyang standard lang para at least we're still a good person. Now, the God we created is tolerant and a loving God. Di ba? Kaniya, ang gihimo nato nga Ginoo karon igsoon, when we lower the standard, is actually we're saying, ang Ginoo nato is a tolerant and loving God. He's not holy anymore. Now, we see us understanding God in our foolish ways. Example, sa tinuoray lang, ingani igsoon. Diba? Okay ra na, anak. Nakasabot nga nung nangabit ka. Diba? Okay, you're actually searching for love. Salbahis mo ni musawa. Diba? Sayang nga na itong una. Lagi Lord, no? Sayang mong Lord. Diba? Salamat Lord ha, pinasabot ka. Diba? Usahay, we will lower the standard. Or okay na anak. I know why gusto ka makipag-sex sa imong girlfriend. Kaysa una, wag ka naka-feel og love. Hoy, diba? Sabdan na lagi na sa Ginoo na, labing man sad si God. Right? And even we compare ourselves with others. Di man siguro tagi i-condemn sa Ginoo sa atong gibuhat, oy. Kaysa sa mga terorista. Di ba? Salbahis pa to, namatay ako. Kuan lang. Di ba? Kanira man ako ang bisyo. And somehow, we lower the standard of God and try to make God understand us. Di ba? And secondly, is that we water down the standard. Right? We seemingly create a God that overlook things we did wrong. We create words that water down what we did wrong. Di ba? We water down words. Like for example, adultery, we call it affair. Sosyal. Di ba? Sosyal na karon. Dili man ay adultery, pastor. Oy, affair man ni. Di ba? Grabe, no? Sosyal na mi karon, pastor. Nothing serious. Affair lang. Di ba? Or, sex before marriage as finding the one. Grabe, no? Mura nagsudan, pastor. Tiluan sa animo na. Kaya basin sumhan ka pagka kana na lang pirmi. Diba? Grabe man sad na, Lord, oy nga imo gikuan sa for the rest of my life, mo ra gyud sudana. Diba? So that's why, you know, kani Lord, testing lang. Sabdan naman ni mo, Lord. Diba? So, mga girls, remember, may mga lalaki igsoon tanaw sa inyo sudan. Manang bantay yun. And somehow we call greed being wise. Diba? Wise na. Trabaho ng tataman-taman jud eh. Saan man na, pastor? Kung di na ako manarbaho, ako i-tights. Di sa ako mapig Sunday. Kailangan mo trabaho, pastor. Pero sige lang kay mag-tights mo ko. Being wise man na, pastor. Diba? Or we call compromise as opportunity. Diba? We water down the standard. Talagsaon naman ni pastor, illegal man ni, pero sige lang. Diba? Makakutsin ako ani, pastor, illegal man, pero sige lang, pastor. Diba? Pastor, sagdain na lang good. Uy, di man, buutan mang good, kwartahan, dakong sweldo, na car, pero di lang Christian. Pero okay na na, makailan na sa Ginoo, pastor. Diba? Diba? So we water down the standard of God. And responsibility to bata pa bitaw, di ba? Sa dahil na mamalikas, uy, bata pa bitaw na, di ba? Tanaw, cute kay mamalikas man sad. Di ba? Okay lang na, sige lang kayo, kung kuwan pa man na. We're not really teaching. And wrong, to God understands. Di ba? How can something, you know, we feel so right, pastor, good, be so bad? Di ba? Kabaluman ko nga, minyo siya, pastor, pero I really feel great love. Di ba, ako na ako nabati before. Di ba? Kanta din kag hiram. Tiba't Ako'y tao lang na nagmamahal at natutuksurin. Maalis mo ba sa akin? Di ba? Somehow we lower the standard of God. We water down the standard. We will minimize the responsibility of feeling guilty and shameful. So at least, di kita guilty, di ba? But Isaiah rebukes these kinds of people saying this. Isaiah 5:20, how terrible it will be for people who call good things evil and bad things good. Who thinks darkness is light and light is darkness. Who thinks sour is sweet and sweet is sour. Grabe, no? Just not to feel shameful. We lower the standard. And thirdly is that where we don't feel any more guilt. Pinaka-worst igsoon, walay guilt and shame. Why? We have erased the standard. Erased na wala yung standard, Lord. Diba? We can decide on our own. It's my life. Diba? Destructive or non-destructive choices, everything is okay. There's no longer good or bad. Wala may good or bad, Lord. Wala may kaming buhat sa tao. Everything is okay. We became our own God. Di ba? I was born this way. I am my own rules. I have my own opinion. Truth is subjective. Di ba? Be true to yourself. Obey your purse. Di ba? Sige, gusto na ni mo. Sige, buhat na. Di ba? Imubitan ng kinabuhi. And we excuse ourselves because, we really want to do what we want to do. And because of moral subjectivity, so many people are living without standards and these things happen. Diba? Like this picture, because of power and greed, diba? There's no standard. I could just live my own. I could just do what I want. The result is war and famine. Diba? You see, our actions has always results. Igsoon. If there's no more standard, imagine igsoon, sa ako bang always sulti sa tuwa. Why is there a law? Anong naibalaod? Kaya kung why balaod ang tao igsoon, gubot ang kalibutan. Because people cannot govern themselves. They are foolish. We are foolish in our ways. That's why God gave us the law. Right? That's why in 1 John 2:16 says this, for everything that in this world is the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life. Philippians 3:19. Their God is their stomach. Di ba? Pag gutom, sundon, ginato na, gutom na good. And their glory is their guilt and shame. Because there's no more guilt and shame. Di ba? Wala na ulaw. Their mind is set only on earthly things. And that's how we somehow, secondly, avoid guilt and shame. But there's also what we call avoiding guilt and shame religiously. You know how? How we avoid guilt and shame religiously? Maybe we say maayo man ming tao, pastor, we go to church, we give our tithes, right? It's actually good works. Di ba? All other forms of religion tries to promote morality or good works. We do good trying to fulfill the standard and lowering our guilt of doing bad. Di ba? Buhatag maayo para at least matambunan ning sa kadaghanan mo sa pulo nimo sala, at least nakay tulog gibuhat, at least dili kay bugat. Di ba? We try to result in good works. And somehow we think by doing good we'll be able to pay our debt in sin and get to heaven. Di ba? Malangit pa siguro ko, baby, hapon sa nako Sa 100 na akong sala, pastor, na among siguro mga 80, pwede siguro na Di ba? Osay, that's how the world thinks. We ourselves pay the debt of our sin. But a problem with good works is this. Isaiah 64 verse 6. We are all infected and impure with sin. When we display our righteous deeds, they are what? Nothing but filthy rags. Do you know what filthy rags before in Greek is called? Ano bitong, kasi tawag na, kaya wala pa may napkin. Sabi nga na kahugaw. Di ba hugaw man ang dugo? It's translated to that Greek word digsoon nga somehow ingana kahugaw. Mo nang ingan ang pasabot digsoon bisag unsa pa nimo ka maayo or unsa pa ka kanabitang buutan aning kalibutana is just filthy rags to God. Understand? Like autumn leaves, we wither and fall. Grabe, no? And our sins sweep us away like the wind. In other words, we cannot pay our sin in our own. Because we're just filthy rags in the eyes of God. In other words, we think to believe that, when we do good works, be good as we can be, we'll be able to fulfill the standards of God. Because of all our righteousness is nothing to God. Someone described it in a story son. Suppose daw, somebody befriended you, na ini amigo sa imo ha, ingan ka nga, palitan ti kag balay, mansyon, di ba? Big beautiful house and told you that you could choose the house you wanted. Sige, gusto ni mong design, di ba? Then when he has handling you the title, gihatag na sa imo na ng balay, you reach to your pockets, nagkuha kag 5 stabos. Di ba? Or tangang natog 1,000 pesos limpyo. Nahulog. Di ba? Nahulog mo ang kwarta dito sa putikan. Tagalog. Then, reach down and pick them up and put them in your friend's hand. Nara. You told him, siya nga, ako, makining balay, grabe ka gwapo. Ako lang tatabangag bayan. Di ba? What happens is that you'll be insulting your friend. Right? And likewise, we insult Christ when we try to add our filthy rags of righteousness to His precious gift of salvation. Jesus paid it all and di nakakadugang anak. Jesus did it all for us, Sigson. And we can pay anything. You know why good works won't work? Because no matter how good a person we think we are, or how many good deeds we did, we already made, we still make mistakes. Right? Maybe some of us, maybe this morning, Igson, you failed something. Maybe you have sinned. Maybe you made mistakes. Di ba? Paingon pa lang ni Musdalan. Paingon pa lang diri sa church. Because no matter what we do, Igson, we'll always fail. In other words, sa lugar, for example, for the whole week, Igson, nakabuhat kag mga 1,000 good deeds. Di ba? And then karon lang, paghabot na nimo sa church, hapit na gid ka moabot sa church, nakasala ka. In other words, na-iresto tanan ang imong gibuhat. That's why we'll always fail in life. That's why good works won't work either. And this is the conclusion of Romans towards this kind of people. Romans chapter 1, verse 21 to 23. For although they knew God, they did not honor Him as God or give thanks to Him. But they became futile in their thinking and foolish in their hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, di ba? We try to pay our debt. Kaning pinakaunang verses, no standard, lower the standard. And lastly, we claim to be wise and try to exchange the glory of mortal God of image, trying to do good, trying to do this for God, and resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. We created our own God. And that's what it all means when we all failed, sin, missing the mark. We missed the mark. Hamartano, in Greek word, igsoon, sin means missing the mark. Naki-target, but you can't hit it. No matter how you try to hit it, igsoon, you always miss the mark. You always fail. So in other words, guilt and shame is just part of the result of sin. Diba, remember Adam and Eve? Katong nagkaon na nila ang apple, igsoon. And somehow they felt guilty and shameful. Diba, gitabunan nila, naghubo ang deko, diba? And somehow what they did, they hide from God. Tago sila sa Ginoo. And ikaduha, they blame each other. That's what we do sometimes, diba? When we feel guilty and shameful. Siya mong good to Lord. Kung what niyang gibuhat, di yung ako may ano, diba? Lord, kung akong parents tarong pa lang akong parents, Lord, di yung may nga akong kinabuhi. Di yung ako pariwala. Diba? Sometimes we blame our parents or blame other people because of our sin. And lastly, we cover, di ba? Gi-cover nila. We try to cover it with our own deeds. We try to cover it with our own righteousness. And somehow everything fails. Now, someone said, sin is any failure to conform towards the moral law of God in act, in attitude, or in nature. Grabe na? Kung dili ka sa butan kay ka, okay. Basin attitude. Or butan nga man kasi attitude in nature. In other words, nalagid sa sulod. Wala tayo lusot. Right? Romans says, all of us have sinned. In other words, gikan pa sa pag-baby pa lang niyo magsuot. Pagdako pa lang niyo, nakasala na ka sa Ginoo. Now, question, if there's no cure to sin, to cure to guilt and shame, to our own effort, even, our good deeds fail, is there any possible way to overcome guilt and shame? How do we now cross over from guilt and shame to forgiveness? How do we now have hope in this? Well, there is, and we'll go through it step by step, Bison. Number one, we need to accept our mistakes. Di ba? Don't hide from it. Don't blame others for it. Don't cover it. We understand that we are sinful and we have no hope in our own way. Sabto na to nga, digid na ko ning kaya, Lord, sa ako lang. I can't do it in my own. I am sinful. I am filthy rag. I'm nothing. Di ba? Admit na to. Nga wala gid ta kung wala ang Ginoo. We're just sinners. And no matter what we do, sin keeps eating up our soul. In Romans 5:6, says this, while we were still helpless, di ba, powerless to provide for our salvation, we accept that we're powerless to provide salvation. We accept that we are, helpless in all ways. We can't do anything. And that's how we acknowledge God. You see, only in acceptance that we are powerless in our own can bring true healing. Di ba? For example, nagsakit ka igsoon, umingon ka nga, sa gabi na kayo sakit, wala lagi po sakit. Di ba? Doktor, wala akong sakit. Di ba? Kasi, di kang matambalan. We need to accept that we made mistakes. No matter how good we think we are, kanon yapon ta sa atong sala igsoon. That's why apart from Jesus, there's no forgiveness, there's no freedom. That's what Romans 5:6 again said this, na sumpay na niya, B. While we were still helpless and powerless, Romans 5:6. Can we show the slide? Romans 5:6 says this, while we were still helpless, powerless to provide for our own salvation, at the right time, grabe no? At the right time, Christ died as substitute for the ungodly. Grabe no? Dungan tabi, at the right time. Ina, at the right time. Grabe ba? Sa saktong panahon, gipakamatyan ta sa Ginoo igsoon. As substitute, kita unta ang mamatay. We would be dead in ourselves, dead in our souls and our nature. But God died for us instead. That's how we cross over igsoon. That's how powerful, what Jesus did for us. He became substitute for our sin. In other words, the only way to cross over from guilt and sin is through accepting that we are sinners and believing that Jesus Christ died for our sins. Amen? What a beautiful truth we have in Jesus, right? We have lost hope. We can find no hope. That's why mga tao bitaw di na makita hope. So there's still hope in Jesus. He's the one who will give us freedom. Now, what are the results of acceptance and believing Christ as our Savior? Number one is this, redemption. Muna yung pinakagwapo igsoon. We thought, alright, no more sin. Diba? Pero that's not the reality sa ako panggingon, diba? Di man ingon nga manay sa igsoon. Pagulini mo karon. Diba? Kita ni mo ang wapay hugas. O sa mali, diba? Magawas mo itong mga magic na mga words, di ba? Because that's not the reality. Every single day, we still sin. I also sin. Kinsa hindi na makasala daning son. Tara na tabi. Atong ilansang sa cross. Right? You see, what it means is that God has already redeemed us. Gibayaran na sa Ginoo. Sin has no longer, it means this, igsoon. Dili ingon kay wala na sala, but sin has no longer power over us. Walay gahom ang sala sa imo. Sa una, enslaved ka. Diba? Ingon ang sala, wave pud ka, di ba? Ingon sila, ato ka diri. Ingana ang sala, igsoon, enslaved ka, bisag asa ka dalon, muadto ka dito. Bisag sa mga dapat nga dili pwede. Di nimo kayang ma-overcome. But when God redeemed you from sin, you now have power to say no to sin. That's what it means when we are redeemed by God from sin. Diba? Unlike before igsoon. Diba, most of us have accepted the Lord here. Sa una igsoon, isa lang nakuhit, diba? Diretso dayon. But now we have a choice. A better choice than before. That we are no longer under the power of sin. We can now overcome sin. Kaya na nato igsoon. You see, I pointed this out because a lot of us still live as if we're still slave. Diba? Dagan kay Christians igsoon, redeemed na sa Ginoo, pero slave pagyapon. A lot of us still lower the standards of God. A lot of us, even Christians, diba? Born again, plus good works. Diba? No, igsoon, we need to understand God has already paid for it to achieve freedom. God has already crossed you over from guilt, sin, slavery, and shame. God has already freed you from pain and suffering. You can even, overcome pain and suffering anymore. Most of us, a lot of Christians nowadays, they're still slave into their past. Like they can't move forward because of their past. Gibuhiin na. Gipahiran na sa Ginoo. Di ba? We're still slave of our past. And somehow we abdicate the responsibility. Lord, nga naman ni Lord, di mo ko mabagong gyapon, Lord, maoram gyapon, Lord, maoram gyapon akong pastor, I cannot overcome this. No, ano mo gipili? You have not lived your life as a redeemed by God. He now becomes our righteousness. I'm not saying, Igsoon, that di na tang makasala. I'm saying is that you can now overcome sin. You now have the choice. You now have the power. That's why we need to choose to live in His freedom. Live your life in redemption. Amen?
Amen.
Amen mo tapad, live your life in redemption.
Live your life in redemption.
Diba? Ang uban sa ato diri, marag nabilin pa. Diba? Gilukat na, pero di kaya mong hawa. You see, I'm saying is that God has redeemed us from it. You now have the power to overcome. But you need to choose to overcome. This religious man brought this woman to Jesus, caught in adultery. But what Jesus did was astonishing. He did not condemn the woman, He forgave the woman. In spite of what she has done, Jesus did not condemn her or did not judge her. But one thing so powerful that Jesus said to her, it's not just about forgiveness. You know? In other words, I already paid for your sin. I already gave you freedom. John 11:8 says this, neither do I condemn you. I already forgave you. I do not condemn you. But He said, go and sin no more. What does it mean? You mean, di na tang makasala, Lord? Di ba? You see, the story does not end with the sin alone. Kinili man ni siya nga, dito lang sa taman, right? Muli man ni silang balay. He would somehow have this struggle of, mag-adulterer pa ba ko, di ba? Or, buhatan pa ba na ako ni? Naaman na struggle, dili man, sometimes, ang Bible bitaw, tanawon lang nato as it is, ingana lang yun. Dili. This woman needs to go home. Same thing sa tuwa. Pag-receive na to kay Jesus karon, pag uli sa atong balay, makatubang tag mga maka-encourage sa atong pagkasalbahis. Di ba? Right? We need to go home. Diba, tistingan lang nako ni Lord kay ligon na kay ko nga Christian. Dili, why ligon Christian igsoon? Apart from God, why ligon? Why maayo? Munang palayo. Ayaw doon. That's how the power to overcome. Right? So when Jesus says, go and sin no more, He's not expecting that this woman is going to live her sinful, flesh at the door and never be tempted again. Dili na maoy gingon ni Jesus. He's telling her to say no to the sin that dwells in her and stop the desire from being conceived. Stop the temptation from becoming sin.